Welcome to Be Hero Fights. I'm Tom,
And I'm Brian.
and we are here to discuss
Or Fuss.
over two hotly debated, highly related topics.
Last 2 weeks, we have shown you guys our 50th episode and a little behind the scenes. Uh, Great entertainment of our 50th episode. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, thank you guys for so much for letting us get to 50 and following us the whole way through. It has been a great time last year doing all of this with you guys. That being said, we are going to go back into a bit of our norm here and do a regular debate. Uh, so this week, we were trying to figure out something to tie in with the Olympics now that we're coming to the last week of that and everything else. And as me and Tom were kind of racking our brains, like, what can we do that's both nerdy-ish and the Olympics? Because though everyone has their own nerdy, the Olympics aren't really nerdy, you know? So as we were going back, we were like, well, I know that I was reading the other day that they're thinking about adding chess in to the Olympics for 2022 or 2024.
Yeah.
And we're like, yeah, but we're not going to talk chess because that would definitely be boring. But what if we say what else besides chess could be on there that's nerdy? So the topic of today is, should esports be an Olympic event?
That's right. Esports are making a huge, I guess, they're becoming a huge trend. A lot of colleges and universities have esports programs now with, scholarships and everything. So, with that being said, and with chess being something that's very much more of just like a strategic mindset game, esports not only combine that strategy or have the potential to combine that strategy with reflexes because you have things that are going to be in real time. So we want to talk about that. What if they were in the Olympics? How would that work, and what might that mean? So, with that being said, before we jump into that, actually, there's just a couple comments we wanted to go through from some of the mini debates that we've been posting to the Instagram. One of the more popular ones was actually frozen burritos versus hot pockets, and we had some people weigh in on that. First of all, Danny _2288 said, "How deep we getting here?" Lynn Wilson green chili bean and cheese burritos are probably the best cheap burritos, but the Hot Pocket big and bold buffalo ones, and she had 4 drooly faces there. Yeah, I mean, these are kind of the two titans of Sunday hungover, or it's late and I'm going to be nasty and eat something delicious. Personally, I'm more of the frozen burrito, but there are some Hot Pockets that are fantastic.
I'm kind of in the same boat. Bachelor wise, like when I was single, I used to do nothing but like frozen burritos and hot pockets.
Yeah.
Not a big fan of their buffalo ones, but they had some really other good ones. Like I like the meatball, like the pepperoni ones for the hot pockets. And for me, it
Yeah.
was almost always just a straight bean and cheese frozen burrito. And don't ask me why, but every time I have a frozen bean and cheese burrito, I require ketchup to go with it. I don't know what it is about that, but that requires ketchup. I don't like ketchup on my regular burritos. I don't like ketchup on other things like that. But for some reason, I need to have it for the bean and cheese burrito. That was my
What
thing
is
back today.
wrong with you?
Oh, dude, so much. You would
It
think
was.
after 51 episodes you would know this.
Oh man, no way! It's all about the from Costco, the Monterey chicken and Monterey Jack. Whew, that frozen burrito, that one's the best. With pace picante salsa and sour cream.
Picante, isn't that from Texas or from New York City? All right,
Sure.
so commercials. Uh, Going back onto that though, we still have another comment from there from another podcast, Pillow Talk Confessions podcast, which excites me for saying. Um, they say I'm going with hot pockets, any flavor over frozen burritos, and to each their own. Uh, my wife is very much a big fan of hot pockets. That's what she goes with. Like we try to do a quick meal of some kind. Um, like say she has to rush out to get my girls out to like dance or something. She'll do a couple of hot pockets for dinner or something like that because quick and easy, and she knows she'll have something decent. We also make hot pockets at home all the time, like homemade ones. So you can do a bunch of things with hot pockets.
Yeah,
But I grew up with a Hispanic grandmother, and burritos were the thing. Like you went with a burrito if you had the choice, frozen
yeah,
or not. You went with a burrito.
yeah. Another comment. Amigo Spec, another podcast, says this is a tough one, but I'm gonna have to say burritos. So yeah, I mean, I don't blame you one bit. They're just yeah, they're good.
Yeah, and a last one is continuing on that trend. Red's ramblings. One had or says had me that burrito today. You know, some people that's way. Like honestly, again, back when I was a bachelor, if I wasn't having like pizza delivered, it was a burrito frozen or occasionally a hot pocket.
Or
Um,
ramen.
no, not ramen. I don't do ramen. Um, But like in my old apartment, and our guest we will have on shortly can attest to this when he comes on. I used to have a wall up the wall of nothing but pizza boxes, burrito like packages of like empty burrito things, and soda boxes. That was all up the wall until one of us decided it was time to clean the house. I.e., we had a date coming over. So, um, but with all that being said, guys, thank you so much for commenting on all of that. So hit up us on our social medias. And you'll see all these little mini debates that we do, and you guys can comment and be featured on here when you do.
Yep.
And of course, you can find us at those social medias at
Facebook.com/BeHeroMedia, Instagram.com/BeHeroMedia.
Of course, you can find us on Twitter at either Be Hero Fights or Be Hero Media. Everything that is Be Hero at BeHeroMedia.com. And you can always add comments right here on YouTube. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button, the notification button, so you can see when we come on.
Definitely. And of course, it goes a long way to just share with your friends. Anyone you think could be entertained by us dorks over here. All
It's
right,
true.
but who do we have as a guest today, Brian?
Uh, we have one of my oldest friends on with us today, largely because it was last minute. We couldn't find anybody else that wanted to join us. So, my dear friend Craig is on with us today. He has been like me and him have ranted back and forth for decades now. We've been roommates and friends since junior high school. So, yeah, Craig, thank you for joining us.
Hi guys, how you doing?
Doing good, man.
Uh, I'm doing. Oh, I'm here. So I will be judging today because I just got done floating the Provo River, and in the sun with lots of alcohol, and my brain is only half here. So that
The
being said,
more
I can be impartial and listen intently to these arguments.
Yeah, exactly. Impartial. Uh,
Brian loses.
so you're going to be my kind of impartial. I gotcha.
Yes.
Ooh, I'm feeling a bias.
All right. So, I know you've watched the show and listened to it before, Craig, but just to catch you up, and anybody has never listened to the show before. So the way we do this is we break it out in 3 rounds. Round one, we talk about either side without bashing the other, kind of explain a little bit on either side and get our beginning point. And then in round two is when the bashing begins. We rebuttal our original conversation and then try and tear down each other nicely and go from there of why one is over the other. And then finally, in the final round, we give our final thoughts of why our side is the best and the other side can hit the brakes.
Yeah. And at any point throughout round two, I can ask any clarifying questions and help to prompt the debate forward as well. So
Exactly. Round one. Fight! So, Craig, on the concept of should esports be in the Olympics, are you for this or against this?
Uh, I'm going to go ahead and argue against it because there's a whole huge thing that they've already got set up. They've got national recognition. They've already got tons of advertising. They've already got superstars and everything else that they go with. I couldn't see why we have to add it into this prestigious, almost godlike competition that we have every 2 years, both summer and winter, to just have a bunch of dirty, grody, weird, I don't know what they call it, otakus, just come in and plaster themselves across this great competition.
I almost feel hurted you saying that because I do stream on this channel video games. You know me well enough to know that I did MLG for a while with our friend Tim. So I did do professional gaming for a little while. I am hurt. And
2 minutes before they were kicked out.
I only hurt because it was so true. But with that being said, obviously we jumped right into round one. So going on that thought, the thought that prompted this whole thing was chess. Chess has been trying to get into the Olympics now for almost 100 years, since the beginning of the Olympics back when they first started doing the Olympics in the first Athens Olympics, which I think was like 1894 or something like that. It was just before the 1900s. From almost that first one on, they've been petitioning to get chess in, and they've been trying or they always come back saying that chess is not a physical sport. There's not really athletics to it. It's all mental and yada yada yada. Well, they've finally, after multiple years of trying petition, it looks like they're going to be having chess now inside of the Olympics. I'm not sure if it's going to be summer or winter. I think it's going to be summer because it's set for the 2024 Olympics. So that'd be the summer one.
Yeah.
Um, and that, chess is an amazing game. I've played chess. I've played chess with Craig. And that's all a mental thing, but saying it's not a physical thing is not very true because you do get your heart rate up and everything else like that. And you do the same thing with esports as well. In any esports you've played, myself, I played Halo competitively back in the day. As you guys have seen on the stream here, I played a lot of Call of Duty. But your heart rate gets up, you get a lot of physical reaction. There have been studies. Well, I'll get into that in the round two, but esports is just as important and as physically demanding, if not more, as chess. So if chess is in, we should allow esports in.
Okay. Good round one. Good round one. So let's go ahead and start round two, where we rebuttal and see where the debate goes. So,
round two, fight.
Craig,
Yes.
based on what you heard from Brian, why is he wrong?
I can see where chess is a game that has been around for thousands of years. They have found forms of chess in ancient tombs, in places that you wouldn't even think that people even thought that chess was a game. They have found chess in every continent on this planet, except for the ones where humans really haven't stayed long enough to do it. I can see why they're fighting to put it into this grand competition that is the Olympics. Because and I will agree with Brian on this one, you do get your heart rate up. You do have to have strategy to it. There is a set of rules that you cannot break. And that is the whole point of the Olympics. You have to do a specific thing in a specific way to get the gold, as it's said. And the way that esports are, the way that all of the different competitions are, the way that there's different genres, the way that there are different gaming sets of people, even, you end up with this whole blanket of too many games and there's too many cooks in the kitchen. you end up with, which parts are we going to use? Are we going to do first person shooters? Are we going to do real time strategies? Are we going to pull in all these 14-year-old kids that are playing Fortnite, and are we going to throw them into this competition and go for the gold? And you're going to watch them as they stand on the podium doing the robot or the floss as they do that. I mean, that doesn't speak, competition to me. That doesn't say to me, I did something a normal human being couldn't normally do. You watch people like, I can't remember her last name, but Simone, the floor gymnast. She
Mhm.
does everything, and when she goes into that, you see her mental set. You see her do these things, and she even bowed out because she can't. She couldn't handle that, or there were some things that happened, and I'm with that. You can't, sometimes you can't handle pressure, but you'd see her get into that set, and she'd do so many backflips before she hit the floor that you're like, you got to go back and look at things. What are they going to do on a slow mo replay of somebody getting a headshot? I mean, you've got Twitch forums that have nothing but, oh, I did a 360, no scope. How's that going to sound? You're going to get so many memes that it's just going to flood everything, and there's no heart to it. There's no bleeding to it. You just get people and even the cheaters. You find out, how many competitions have you gone to where you found out the top guy, the guy that just beats all, suddenly found out that he had one cheat going and somehow managed to get into the server, or he managed to use his own PC on that, and they find these things out. And you can kind of go into the doping of the original Olympics and everything, but eh, cheating on that level is more like, I'm going to screw myself up to do this. Cheating on the computer level is more of a, I'm just going to screw you over. And so where does that leave somebody that's found out later on, oh, you somehow cheated, if they win the gold in these kind of competitions? How is that going to make anybody else that can pick up a controller and casually play these games to justify, hey, I am a good enough athlete to earn this reward?
So there was a lot there. Let's start off with the cheating aspect right at the beginning because that'll encompass a lot of what I have to go with. Right now, they do competitive gaming or esports as at the college level.
Mhm.
Here in Utah, we actually have a competitive team for the University of Utah, and the rule sets that they have are very similar to how they do the national conventional ones. I believe for the ones we have for Utah teams are for uh, my brain just League of Legends, Overwatch, and StarCraft. On all three of those games, they've been doing massive competitions for those for years. And the way that they lay out the competition is that you don't use your own PC. They are PCs that are completely monitored and created by the or by the competitional organization.
Mhm.
So the person just rolls up to that PC and uses that. Um, currently, the ones that they use for those competitions are all PC based. There is no controller, sadly, because that's what I was a big player of. That is the best and easiest way to take the cheating out, because at that point it's the up to the competition, in this case the Olympics, to control that environment. Um, the thought that there's this is a newer thing, and it is a bit, but you've been having esports like competitions for decades now.
Yeah.
Some of the first ones you have for first person shooters were back in like Doom and Unreal Tournament, and of course you had the real time strategies with like StarCraft and Age of Empires and so on and so forth. So those have been out for decades as well. And yes, relative to chess, it is not even a baby; it's practically a placenta. But it is still in that realm of competition. They have these competitive competitions in that kind. Now, there's a difference too when we talk about competitive competitions. We're talking about the kind that they do by either Blizzard running it or like a college level running it or something like that. Not the ones that they do for like the World of War or World of Warzone, where it's a group of people brought together. So you could have to be dealing with cheaters and that concept. There's no control because they're doing it remotely from their own PCs or own game systems. Now, trying to remember. Oh, going back to the thought of the variety of games, which games there are, because there's a massive blanket, and you are correct. But my suggestion of how to handle that scenario is simple. and right now in the Olympics where they do the floor exercises. Going into the Olympics, they've to the next one, they've decided what the uniqueness of that floor exercise is. So what unique gimmick they're going to have. A couple years ago, they had like the hula hoop, they've had the ribbon, they've had a baton. I want to say that they even had like a yoga ball one year and stuff like that. And that would be the way I would think that you'd want to go with it too. Is that you would have it where you qualify based off of that game that you're good at, or maybe a variety of games to qualify like to that massive amount of games for the Olympics. And then you find out that, oh, you're playing a Halo competition, or you're playing a StarCraft competition, or League of Legends. Those are the ones that they're going to go with. CS:GO. You have a variety of ones that it could be, and they would have to be able to change that every following year so that it would be something different, but also something there. Now, the biggest aspect we haven't talked about on this, which I think would be the most beneficial for the Olympics to do this, is the money and the recognition. Um, eh, so, one of the other sports that they took out for a long time that they refused to put into the Olympics was skateboarding, which actually just made its appearance this year. And part of the reason is they didn't want to do a skateboarding competition is they were worried about how it was going to do with marketing. Uh, like whether they're going to have like Birdhouse or one of the other companies help out on marketing stuff like that. You can do something similar like that. So along with a city and country competing to have the Olympics, maybe a company, you know, goes and tries to sell their game to be that competitive game for the year. So that's more money available for the Olympics to have to be able to do other things. That way, you're not having scenarios like we did with Rio, where Rio puts out $5 million for a new place that's not getting used at all anymore. Here in Utah, we had the Olympics back in, was it 2002, and we have a bunch of stuff for the Olympics still that's being maintained. But if we were to have something where we were said like, um, Blizzard and Activision stuff like that, we could have had money helping our state by having that advertisement for going and recouping some of that money. I think we paid all told something like almost $200 million between uh, fixing up, like doing up the road so we could handle stuff like that, getting hotel rooms set up, getting all the Olympic stuff in general set up, and everything else like that. With I think it was like $200 million. If we got even a percentage of that recouped back just in advertisement from a new game company that's trying to sell their game or a game that's already in existence, like League of Legends, that would be able to be beneficial for that. For the Olympics in general, but also for the state or the country that's hosting the Olympics.
I kind of
So
look at it this way. Just as a rebuttal against his little, just a minute.
Mhm.
If you're going to take that and you're going to say it's going to bring in revenue, I would also say that that's also one of those things that you're also biasing toward those companies as well. And are you going to go ahead and pick? Are you going to say, okay, Blizzard is our uh, Olympic developer, or is it going to be Microsoft? Is it going to be 343 Studios? Is it going to be all of these different developers? Is it going to be one of those things where you pull it in and say we're going to make an Olympic class game? I mean, they can't make a game that works to release. How are they going to make a Olympic class game? That's the biggest argument that I could have, is how are you going to release something that's good enough and fixed and solid with that kind of a competition, because that's what it is. If a piece of equipment in the Olympics goes down, that entire manufacturer suddenly hits the wall and just doesn't know what to do with itself. How can you do that with a developer as well? And also, are you biasing? Do you bias? Do you take one guy for one year and another one for another year? Or do you just pick one to go with? Or do they make one for themselves? I mean, could you think of games that would be coming out of the Olympics? I don't know.
Well, to go with that, it's not that they would be creating new games. They'd already be established games, like I talked about before, like Halo, like League of Legends, ones that are already established as competitive games. Maybe even have like some mandate that says that the game has to have been out for so much time. That way, that there are bug fixes and such like that. Um, the other aspect to it is the Olympic Committee, who when they decide on like the country that's going to do it, they have a lot of bids for that, right? I'm here in Utah, we bid like 5 or 6 times, and we're still bidding again for another Olympic. Um, you would do the same. Like those companies would want to bid on it to be able to be the ones focused on it. Because not only are they paying to have that bid, but they're also going to get marketing revenue. I'm as a great example. Halo Infinite is coming out this year, right? If they would have had it where they were playing, say, Halo 3 or Halo 5 as the Olympic game um, for the PC game for this year, they could do that in the process of attempting to sell the next Halo game because that one's already been out long enough, but it's allowing for the sell. And there may be some bias, but that's where you have to have the Olympic Committee being the ones deciding on that, which they do now. And again, going back to the floor exercises, you have to imagine that they do some kind of bidding for that already, because the company that does the ribbons or the hula hoops, they're going to be the ones trying to bid to say, hey, use ours because then I want our marketing or our revenue from that future thing. I don't have the statistics right now, but I guarantee you the sales of hula hoops a couple of years ago when they had that as a floor exercise shot up.
So, okay, I have just a question to kind of prompt the debate in a slightly different way, though. One of the things about the Olympics is while you're watching sports, these professionals at such a high level playing these sports, is it brings a lot of attention to that sport, which is actually good for private coaches. It's good for just that sports industry. Um, Whereas I guess with esports, how do you think that would actually affect the gaming community when right now there is actually a big push to support more indie developers versus the AAA rated games? Like, do you think that it's good to give these AAA rated games so much attention when they already are under a lot of controversy from the gaming community? So I guess how healthy do you think it would be for the gaming community um, to have esports in the Olympics?
Um, I think for the health of the community, that's relative. So yes, there's a huge push right now for indie games, um, but that's largely because the community has been burned a lot by games being rushed out, and that goes back to what I was saying before. The ones that have been proven, like League of Legends, CS:GO, Overwatch, these are games that are in constant development. They're ones that are being constantly checked on, stuff like that. I love Call of Duty. Like I play that, as you guys have seen on the stream, all the time, but I would never put that one in as an Olympic competition, at least not through Warzone right now, because there is just too it's too much of a finicky game. You'd have to have a solid title to be able to handle it, and that comes with a couple of other caveats too. Um, the way that they handle competitions right now in Overwatch, let's say as an esport, uh, is there are the ability of doing a regame. So let's just say that you're having your standard 6-on-6 for Overwatch, and you Overwatch is a great game for this example because it's a first-person shooter that a lot of people like, but it is uh, strategy completely because you have multiple characters that are going to be different types, and most of the time you have one character who's great against one kind of character but not the other, and so you have to find out the strategy you want. The way that they do the regaming is if something happens in the game. So say like randomly one of the PCs drops out or something like that, no matter where you're at in the game, whatever the level's going, that game is automatically restarted. So if there was a flaw or something to happen, a coach can call for a restart and go from there. And you'd have to have something similar like that in there for that because unlike almost any other sport in Olympics or otherwise, there is a lot of tech requirements, and there could be tech problems. But having the rules built in and not have to do it on the fly, that's where you're going to go with. We have these problems still with hockey and other games that are regular sports. You know, the ball gets stuck when you're shooting basketball; it gets stuck in the rim. How does that work? The basic rule for basketball is the the teams who got the ball stuck, it goes to the opposite team essentially. So you have rules set up like that. Esports is still fairly new, so there's going to be a little bit of workaround to work towards that stuff and some standardization. But it's something that we can get to.
I would say that on the other side of things, anybody can work out a system. Anybody can get anything going. Anybody can pick the games and get them set. What another problem I could see happening is what happens to the country that has censorship laws that pulls that game out of their ability to practice? You've got amazing guys that are really good at being able to play the game, but what happens when India comes in and says, we don't have Halo because it's too bloody? Or there's this whole thing about PUBG, and that was just the mobile game that they shut the whole thing down, took it off because of their censorship laws.
Hmm.
Where is it you're going to pull these games out of, and how are you going to get it going in order to make sure that everybody's inclusive? I mean, not everybody's going to play hockey. I understand that you're not going to suddenly have a strange team from Jamaica playing hockey, but even then, you got cool runnings for the bobsled stuff. So we've got that kind of stuff that's going to happen. But where does that come from? Where is it that you're going to end up with these censorships on those platforms? Because maybe they're coming from a country that does not have an internet connection, a server, a console, or a PC to even have these games, and sometimes all they have is their phone. Are you going to make a competition where all you see is a bunch of guys on their phone just staring at it? Where's the excitement in that? I watch the Olympics because partially it's exciting. You watch somebody hit the hitting the parallel bars, you're like, oh geez, she's doing something or he's doing something I can't physically do. I actually honestly believe they need to have a regular person next to all of this do it once to show how bad it is for a regular person to try. So
Have a version of
where's the
fail
excitement?
army and like awesome people right next to each other.
Exactly. It's like, oh, no. You want to do a poll vote? You want to see this guy do a poll vote?
Yep.
There you go. How exciting is it going to be for some people that tune into the Olympics? I mean, I know people that they watch the swimming, and to them, they did swimming in high school. They love the swimming. They can see the technical side of it. It's like watching NASCAR. People just some look at it and go, okay, it's turning left, but you get enough people that are in it or love it to justify it. Where can you justify people looking at their phone? Where can you justify somebody staring at a screen? Where's an action shot where you're just doing this? You know, and that's all you see because they're like, okay, there's the perspective view. Then you go into the action, and you're just seeing all of these lights and pixels, and you don't know what's going on. Some 60-year-old person's going to tune into this and go, and what are these whippersnappers doing? And all you see is a bunch of colors and a commentator saying, "Oh my gosh, he just killed this guy and got a triple kill," and you're like, "What is going on here?" But at least on every other game, you can look at it and go, he did a triple axle flip off of his skateboard, and you're like, I don't know what to call it, but that was cool. And that's where I kind of come from. It's like, hey, where is the excitement in this when you're just looking at the people competing?
Well, to go along with that, there's a couple thoughts. One, you're right. Not everyone would be available to play these things based off of their own country's decisions, but they also have to apply for each event that they want to be a part of. That's why you don't see, like Somalia have a hockey team and things like that. It's because they didn't apply for it. So the ones that don't want to be a part of it, they don't have to be a part of it. Uh, as long as a decent amount of people would be there enough to do the competition, that's what the part would be. And that's why you would see ones with like hockey teams, basketball teams, so on and so forth, is because they have had enough to do it. Now, going to the bits about the excitement, you're right. Some people are not going to be excited about people playing the games. They'll never do the phone. That's just never going to be a thing. But like I can understand like watching it and being like, all right, what's this craziness going on? Like I'm pretty sure I saw my 12-year-old doing this on Fortnite. See that I can understand that bit, but at the same time, you're going to have people that are into it. So that same person you were talking about earlier about who did swimming, there's a huge amount of people in our generation and younger that are into esports and gaming. When I was doing MLG and stuff, it was still fairly new in that concept as being an esport, for doing Halo and things like that. So we didn't have a huge following of people, but we had some. Myself, I was following a lot of it. Tim, my roommate now, our friend, he followed it and stuff like that. And now you have people like Ninja who does streaming and stuff like that, who makes tons of millions of dollars. There's tons of other people out there now. An Australian gentleman by the name of Muzel, he did competitive, a world competition specifically for Overwatch. He led the team, and he's a huge streamer now. Does Fortnite, but he did that competitively, and he's well known. My 8-year-old daughter knows who Muzel is. Okay, so there'll be people of that generation learn and watch. I think that goes to why like it took so long for skateboarding to get in. Is skateboarding became super popular in the late 70s, early 80s, for people, and then started growing up, and then they started doing competitions in like the late 80s, early 90s, and did the X Games in the late 90s, 2000s, and things like that. And it started growing and growing and growing until it was undeniable that it needed to be a competition. And we grew up around the beginnings of that being a competition. But my grandfather, watching skateboarding people, would never think that that was a sport, but would watch like shot putting and pole vaulting and other track and field ones as an Olympic sport. So it's all a generational thing. So yes, right now you might get somebody like, say, your dad who's 60s, who doesn't know or care to watch an esports thing, but my 8-year-old daughter sure will.
So one more question I have for you guys, or I guess that I think we should go ahead and touch on anyway. What do you guys have to say about the physical demand? What kind of physical health? I know I was just thinking about it. So a lot of the streamers that I watch are actually pretty physically healthy people, and some of them even like that's one of their points is like, no, I actually work out quite a bit because like if my body's healthy, my mind's healthy. So do you think that there is a point to be made about someone's physicality in relation to video games and I guess physical fitness? Yeah, let's touch on that.
I will grant that you do need a bit of physicality to be able to do this. I myself have watched a lot of Twitch and YouTube videos, and I'm a very big fan of several, YouTube game players that, have carried me through very dark times in my life. And I see the level that you kind of go to. You actually have to have some fortitude in order to be able to do these things. But on the flip side, what happens when you're talking to something along the lines of how much are these guys' thumbs insured for? So,
Right.
are you going to walk in and go, "Oh my gosh, there's the gold medal winner, and his thumb is worth $6.1 million because if he breaks his thumb or bruises his thumb or throws his wrist out because he did something wrong, is that going to be something that it just boggles my mind to hear? That is absurd.
Quick, we
When
need more
somebody's
Bengay.
exactly, oh man, where's my wrist guard? when when you're talking like some of the competition on the floor, on anything else, I can understand somebody's leg being insured for that much because it's like you're understanding they're more insuring a person's body as a whole. If a runner breaks his leg, okay, he has the ability to be able to just make sure it's taken care of. Maybe he can get back into competition, and maybe it's not going to be like one of those soccer players that gets kicked in the shin and suddenly out for the rest of the season. But how is it going to be when you're sitting there trying to justify to a insurance company, why is my one thumb, $6.1 million, and why is this thumb $8.1 million? And how can you make sure that even your trigger fingers? Oh man, no, that's only $200,000. How do you justify that? How do you make that into a thing? How do you make sure that health standards? I mean, what is he doing? Sitting there with one of those little
The stress
hand
balls.
stress balls or a hand crank that he's just like sitting
Yeah.
there going, "No, I'm training right now, dude." I mean,
But the answer I have for you that's completely is easy is Jennifer Lopez, J-Lo, insured her butt. Okay, so that has nothing to do with her athletic ability or not. She insured her butt for millions of dollars because that's part of her look. So having someone's thumbs, or again, this is a BPC, so it'll be like the fingers for the mouse and keyboard and such. You're insuring your livelihood because these Olympic players are also going to be people who are eventually going to be moving on to doing stuff professionally and things like that. And that's the parts that you're insuring is the livelihood of that. Now, Tom, what was your question again? Because
Fitness.
yeah, fitness. Okay, so going on with fitness, yes, there is a fitness, but it is due to what you're doing. So a weightlifter purposely goes out of their way to strengthen certain parts of their body to do weightlifting, right? So biceps, triceps, back, neck, things like that, to strengthen the part of their body that they're going to be using for their competition. Now, one that you wouldn't think of is competitive gamers. What they strengthen is their cardio because you're sitting at that long doing the gaming or whatever at a high rate, so your heart rate's going like crazy. You're going to need to have great cardio for it, because you're not in a position that your body is used to doing at a high heart rate in a good position for that, right?
Hi ho, hi ho, high heart
Outside
rates.
of the 15 minutes it takes for you to go poop and you have a high heart rate trying to push that out, your body is not in this position at a high heart rate all the time. But when you're gaming, you're going to be. That's why a lot of game streamers now are showing their heart rate on while they're streaming, so you can see what their heart rate's going to be like while they play. And I've seen sometimes when they get right into the middle of a fight or something, they're up there in the high cardios like 130, 140, 150, which is what I hit when I'm running on the treadmill. So you can tell that that's something that you'll need to worry about is your cardio. But the other part too, and something that was brought up for this Olympics specifically because of Simone, whatever her last name is, the gymnast that did great this last year for not the Olympics, but like maybe it was the Olympics where
Just
she did
general
so.
gymnastic stuff.
Yeah, she held the bow out because of her own mental health reasons, and they've been now pushing a huge thing on mental health. You have to not just keep an exercise for your physicalness, but for your mental health too, because you have to go with a lot of mental. They have to deal with a lot of mental problems on just the concept of what gaming and strategy is in general. So it won't matter on that part whether it's gaming or chess or any other strategy. Mental health is something that's going to be needed to work out as its own fitness in general. So
Gotcha. All right. Let's go ahead and go into our final round then. So, in about 1 to 2 minutes, final thoughts.
final round, fight.
Let's start with you, Craig. Why should esports not be a part of the Olympics?
In the end, I think it's one of those concepts that if I were going to get real, if I was going to just pull it down and go, okay, if it were to be something that somebody presented to me, if I was on the Olympic Committee and I was sitting there trying to say, okay, what are you going to do to justify this to me? I would have to think that the biggest thing would be, how is this going to enrich the lives of the next generation? What is this going to do to everyone that looks at this and goes, hey, I can do it? Somebody looks at Tony Hawk, and it would be cool to see him in competition, even though he's up there. I mean,
Yep.
the guy's got that weird level of celebrity. You either know who he is or you don't, or you think he's not him when you see him. That kind of thing kind of crops up a lot. What is going to present to me as a committee member? How are you going to justify this to me? How are you going to tell me that the next generation isn't just going to be sitting on their butts, working on their hands, making sure that they don't get a cramp, and even if they work on their cardio, you're still looking at what fulfillment are they getting out of this? What aspirations is this filling? How is this going to make my child look at something and go, I just don't want to kill big, ugly monsters on screen to earn a gold medal? How is it going to promote, hey, I want to use this skill to do something else. Because a lot of the times I see Twitch gamers, I see uh, YouTubers, that's all they're doing. They've made a whole life on just showing themselves doing a game, doing this one skill. And it doesn't, to me, translate sometimes to other parts of life. And you can look at all of the other Olympic sports and you can say to yourself, an Olympic track athlete, he can at least be able to run. He's got body strength, he's got mind strength, he's got things that he can present and use if he weren't competing. Some guy doing powerlifting, there's at least something there to be able to say, this is how you can make yourself better. How can you justify to me that somebody that plays Halo is somehow going to make themselves into a CEO one day just because they sat there and played a
Again, I feel like that's a personal attack against me. Okay,
Yeah.
I am going to be a CEO eventually one day. All right, but no, I think the reason why esports should eventually become an Olympic sport is actually a lot to what you're saying. Is it does give the ability for people to have something that they can feel like they can go towards. Because you look at, a lot of the athletes out there. Let's say Michael Phelps, right, for swimming. I'm never going to swim as well as Michael Phelps. As hard as I try, as much as I try, I'm never going to be able to do that. But if I put in the time and effort, just as if I were to do it with swimming, I could learn to be a competitive gamer. Now, you said you watch a lot of YouTube and stuff like that, and Twitch of watching people play games, which is a lot of what YouTube is. But that's not competitive gaming. That's literally watching someone play a game. When you watch competitive gaming, which you can find all over the place, and again, the University of Utah has a competitive team which you can watch online. They actually have a Twitch channel specifically for that. Um, you can see the difference because there's strategy built into all of that. Anyone that's ever played ranked Overwatch and gets high up there, you'll understand that there is a strategy to every bit of it, and that part is the part that is where you want to go for something like the Olympics, or say towards moving it up for the future, for the generations coming behind it to see, is not the gameplay itself, but the strategy you're creating. Again, like chess, you're creating the ability of teaching these people to problem solve and react and to stimulus that's coming to them. They've been tons of studies out there showing that people who grew up gaming or who are gamers are able to problem solve and have better reactive skills and social skills than a lot of other people who just do other things. Um, and that's something to go back with sports. They have the same, this almost the exact same level of problem solving, social skills, drive for competitive gamers that they do in any other competitive sport that you would find out there. So if you want to be a person that does wants to learn and does baseball and does competitive baseball and things like that, so you're going to put in that time and effort and train and drill and stuff like that, but also want to be part of a teamwork. You'll see that in competitive gaming doing the exact same thing. They still go there. It's not like their training for competitive games are up at the U are nothing than them just playing a game. No, they're talking over strategies and plans and ways to resolve this. That is why there's a future for e-game or esports and why it should be an Olympic sport.
All right. Well, very interesting debate here. Just trying to think. As far as my personal opinion goes, I don't see it being a part of the Olympics anytime soon. But I actually do think that in my lifetime, it's a possibility. Um, that being said, so there's a couple things in your final argument, Craig. You talked about how you weren't sure how this could actually inspire the next generation and how it could be applicable.
game.
I'm gonna say that that's not really a fair argument because again, with sports and you're just watching someone play something, whether it's a physical game or esport, there is a point where it's like, no, that's just kind of your job and you're just inspiring kids to play a game, physical or internet wise. I don't know, that argument just didn't feel like it was very fair. I just felt like that argument could be flipped and used against any sport. So I think I'm gonna have to throw that part out. However, I did I did like what you were saying about censorship, though, and how there are a lot of games that are not allowed in a lot of countries. Like let's say fighting games were going to be in the Olympics. Like arguably the most influential one would be Mortal Kombat, but it's incredibly violent. And that's definitely I could not see that game being allowed in the Olympics for one thing. Um, so then how do you rule out big games because of controversial things like that? So I thought that was actually a very, very clever takedown. um, Brian, I did like what you're saying. You did talk about the fitness and the cardio. I thought that was actually really important because a lot of people do write off gaming and gamers as a very lazy thing, something that's very lackadaisical. But yes, the studies do show that gamers have a lot more mental capacity for multitasking, for so many different things, that it's actually got a lot of real world application in business and in so many different things. So I think I really liked your approach there. Um, all right. So as far as who do I think won though? Um, I think in this case, I am gonna go ahead and give this one to Brian. Esports should be allowed in the Olympics, and I think the reason why is because he did. I do think your best argument was with the censorship laws and how do we um, handle bringing that in. And I even brought up the prompt of like, how is this going to affect the gaming community with like independent games? And but I think Brian's rebuttal to all that was good in the sense that like countries have to bid for what they want to be in the first place. And so if it's something that's censored, and I don't think you came back around to fight against that. So yeah, I think this time I'm gonna have to give this to Brian.
Oh, God, Craig.
I could probably add a couple of points to counterbalance that.
Yes, sir, but the time has passed for that.
And there's other topics we could have touched on too, like what performance enhancing drugs, like if someone's on prescription Adderall, are they going to be allowed to compete? Like there's certainly other points that we could have talked about, but we're at about an hour at this point, so had to wrap it up at some time. So that's
Well, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this. It was super fun. And if you guys want to rebuttal Tom on his thought that I should not have won and Craig should have, hit us up here in the comments and let us know. Because, we don't know everything. Obviously, we didn't cover every aspect of this. It's actually an interesting conceptual debate, and this is probably the most debatey debate we've had in a while.
Yep.
So hit us up in the comments. Tell us what you guys think. Did he get it right? Did he get it wrong? Did I get something wrong? Let us know.
Exactly. Hit us up, facebook.com/BeHeroMedia, instagram.com/BeHeroMedia.
On Twitter at BeHeroFights or BeHeroMedia. Of course, you can find everything that is BeHeroMedia at BeHeroMedia.com, and you can also comment you can put the comments in here on YouTube, as well as don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the notification button to see when we come on with either a new B review on Fridays or on Wednesdays when we do live streaming with B Hero.
Exactly.
Or with Heroes Play.
Exactly. So. Awesome. Well, thanks, guys, so much for watching. Remember to share, like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. It goes a long way. It's the biggest way you can help support us, and it doesn't cost you anything. Craig, do you have any final thoughts before we go? Anything that you want people to know?
Thanks for having me. Hopefully I haven't alienated myself so badly that I can't come back. And yes, I remember the pizza boxes. It got so high. Do you see the shelf back here? That's how high the pizza boxes got before somebody went, we're bringing over a date, clean those things out. And most of the time it was me stacking these things and throwing them away. So
he's not wrong. Yeah. I'm so glad I'm married now.
Someone to rein you in.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Or
she's
clean up after me, one of the two. All right, guys. Well, Greg, you've heard us many times, so you know how we end this every week. So, everyone, as always,
Fight on.
Fight on.
There you go.
All
I
right.
was waiting for the cue.
I said the cue. That's the as always.
It was the computer, I swear.
Yeah, okay. All right, guys. We'll catch you next week.